Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. How's it going, guys? How are you doing? Sorry to be earlier than my normal late self, but still late. It's like worse than anything to be a little bit late, right? Like you want to be maximally late, but you know, that's how we do. That's how we do. Anyway, hey, hi, welcome to the show. We've got some topics tonight. We've got some interesting topics going tonight. So, well, the ones that are in the description, we'll start with those. The ones that are in the description. We've got responding to reasonable restrictions on the Second Amendment. Now, this topic is something I covered the other day. I've talked about it a lot. I know I don't like revisiting stuff so frequently, but someone clipped a rant I did the other day and put it on Twitter about Jamie Raskin. And Jamie Raskin is a gentleman in Congress with some wrong ideas about freedom in the Constitution, though he professes to be a constitutional scholar and is a lawyer. Okay, I said it in a PC way. All right. So this person on Twitter responded with I was going to say a well thought out response, but it's not. It's a verbose response, masquerading as well thought out. And it's a common response you see today, particularly in regards to the Second Amendment. And that's why it's not well thought out, because it's commonality and it's robust sort of scope, we'll say, and it's quote unquote common sense approach to an issue. It appeals to people as one that's well thought out. And you can probably already kind of guess where it's going just based on my rather marginal description of that post. We're going to go through it piece by piece. I used to do this a lot more, where I would go through some criticism or commentary that was written and respond to it in real time. And we're going to do that. Now, I did drop a couple brief responses on Twitter the other day when it happened, but this thing kept going and I stopped watching because I can't spend all day on Twitter. It's depressing. So we're going to go through this person's whole point, and I'm going to dissect it as politely as I can muster, because, you know, you want to encourage people to go through an issue and think about it, but you got to tear it apart to its core when it comes to essential freedom and liberty, because the purpose of writing down essential freedom and liberty in our governing document as you can't mess with this thing, we're actually going to take it out of the democratic process. We're going to remove it from the Republican process of representative government. We're going to take it out of the hands of the executive branch, and we're going to put down in advance that you cannot mess with this thing short of an extreme set of circumstances and actions, which we're going to tell you how to do that specifically in this document. That's the only way you can touch this. But other than that, no, you can't. You can't just mess with this with the normal stuff. They took the time to write that down. They took the time to create these processes. And so many people want to shirk the very real fears that the founders had, that these essential, critical rights would be trampled. And their fears are, of course, well-founded, because all we have seen in the ensuing centuries are trampling of these rights, absent the process that was meant to address the issues of changing times, modernization, whatever you want to say. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to try and make it not tedious. I don't think it'll be tedious. Look, I love the Second Amendment. I love the First Amendment. I love all of the amendments in general, particularly of the first 10 variety. They're great. The later ones get a little suspect depending on the amendment, but most of them are okay. Most of them are okay. But the first 10 highlight our essential liberties. And the best part is that no aggregation of government and citizen sort of sentiment has deigned to change substantively the first 10 amendments. Now, have they been changed substantively by processes which are outside of the process that was laid out? Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't make those changes correct or acceptable. But we're going to talk about all of that. All of that we're going to talk about in this topic. So it is a response to this one Twitter guy, girl, I don't know, teddy bear, whatever it is. But in it, I hope to just revisit some constitutional concepts that merit revisiting whenever they come up, and they come up all the time, constantly. So we're going to do that. All right. That's the first one. The next one's a little bit different. It's not so much in the realm of like constitutional law or anything like that, but it's this new fad, trend, something in online dating that I read about today. So it's not like I've been seeing this or anything. It's a trend in middle-aged women and online dating sites called pig butchering. And when I saw the headline, I was like, oh, this will be way funnier than anything else I read today. And then it was funny, but not in the way I expected. So we're going to talk a little bit about pig butchering as a sentiment, as a concept, and as the response to it, which is, of course, going to be ridiculous because it involves women and the choices that they make. And if you have something involving women and the choices that they make, the natural reaction for people is to apologize for women's incompetence or inexperience or whatever, and ignore the fact that this same thing happens all the time to non-women. Because you really have two categories of people a lot of times in these discussions. You have women and you have non-women. Like, because you can't acknowledge men as a category, so it has to be non-women. So, and no, I thought it would be slam pigs too, but it's not. It's actually so much dumber than that it's amazing. It's amazing. So we're going to talk about pig butchering and its sort of implications and the silliness of this sort of attack, or not attack, assessment of situations as they occur. So we're going to do that. And then I've got some more FTC versus Microsoft stuff. It's going to be a little bit more technical on that front. A little bit more technical. Because a couple days ago, and this all kind of happened at the same time as the other stuff I talked about with the FTC versus Microsoft, but I really want to hit this topic because I don't want to say interesting. I don't want to oversell it. I don't want to do that. What I want to do, though, is it's a critical gap in understanding of business acquisitions. And I would normally bring on Ty Beard for something like this, but it's just going to be one segment. And I'd love to talk to Ty about some other stuff, and we might talk about this FTC lawsuit. But it's a critical piece in understanding business mergers and acquisitions, and also understanding the nefarious, insidious nature of the FTC as a government oversight board, which either doesn't understand the basic process by which a business acquires another business, or intentionally ignores their knowledge of how this works to suit their political ends. And you hope it's the second one, and then you think, God, why am I hoping that government corruption is the correct answer? It's because government incompetence is actually scarier. So that's the main lineup of stuff. But I have a bunch of other topics to also talk about, as one does. Amaranth is a topic that is now in the news because Amaranth has an ability to insert herself in the news whenever she wants. And I don't know if it trends with like needing money or like languid subscriptions or whatever, but Amaranth is now experiencing ovarian failure at the tender age of 29, which can be results of a whole lot of different things. And we can all speculate on what they are. But you know what? I don't really want to like sit here and shit on Amaranth. Because I'm not a Saudi prince. Damn it. I wasn't going to do it. Chat, you made me. You made me do it. Okay. Sorry. But look, I'm going to do the polite thing and say this. I wish her all the best. Like legitimately wish her all the best. I know that like dealing with stuff with reproduction and fertility is scary for people. Like it legitimately is. And assuming in good faith that it's a truthful story and she really is struggling with this stuff, that really sucks. That's a very unfortunate thing. So rather than take the easy road and like dump all over Amaranth and like say thoughty things or whatever, I'm not going to do that today. Also, Drex is coming over next week, so I'm sure we'll get around to it. But for now, I'm gonna wish her well. Okay, I'm gonna wish her well and you know, hope for some good results from her medical treatments. There's another thing I just grabbed. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about NBC News. They have a tweet. I might actually lead with this as we kind of fire up the show. We're gonna talk about NBC News because I talked about this the other day, yesterday with Joe. Joe and I were talking about Pride for a little bit because Megan Fox had been apparently demonetized because of criticism of Pride. And we got around to this idea of the people consistently saying like, we're coming for your children. Like there was that gay men's choir that said that. And then there was recently one of the Pride parades, like a trans group said, we're coming for your children or whatever. And we talked about them like utilizing that and blaming people saying that. And that was like their empowerment. Well, of course, the apologetics from NBC News are coming out on that. So that, you know, it didn't take long from yesterday's prediction for that to be correct. So that'll be great. So we might actually just start with that. It won't be a long story. And I've got some other ones. I've got some other ones chambered up. I mean, I've got some various like hilarious true crime stuff. They're continuing the push on judicial ethics against Alito, and they're going to continue that push until the Senate, the Democrats in the Senate mark up their bill for judicial ethics reforms in the Supreme Court. So, you know, which they said is after July 4th, as I talked about. So, you know, we're going to see more and more of these stories about judicial ethics. And the best part of this story with Alito is it involves his wife, and they have to go ahead and admit that there's no apparent ethical issue because there's no one who could have benefited directly from the potential for influence if it even exists. But they have to grasp on to every ethics potential story that they have to build up, again, this political will or political capital to go after the Supreme Court. So I don't know if we're going to get into that today or not. Not sure, but it is a thing that has been going on and will continue to go on until that bill drops. So the next piece I have before we fully get into the show is we've got two guests, one for sure tomorrow and one pretty dang sure for Thursday. All right. So tomorrow we're going to have Eric Hunley on the show. I've been on his show a whole bunch of times, been looking for a good reason to have him on the show. We're going to discuss a New Mexico, well, hopefully, whatever he's willing to talk about, we're going to go ahead and discuss a New Mexico district attorney trying to strong arm Eric Hunley into divulging a source on the critical state secret issue of the Alec Baldwin prosecution. They're really worried where Eric got some information, which is always great when they go after a journalist for their sources, because you can pretty much verify that the source and the information that they used is true and correct. Once the government gets really mad that you happen to say the thing they didn't want you to say, you know why they didn't want you to say it. So they're trying to do that. So we'll be talking to him about that journalistic shield, but we're also going to talk to him about other subjects. So Eric's a really cool guy, really sharp, is watching a lot of stuff happening in culture and government that I don't ever see. And so we'll get his input on a whole bunch of stuff. He's a great dude. Really like it. Really like him and his show, and happy to be able to have him on the night show. Thursday night, probably, most likely, almost guaranteed, almost for sure. Andrea Burkhart will be returning to the stream. Been a very long time since I've had Andrea on. It was probably the last time would have been around the Depp trial, almost a year ago, a little bit kind of in the aftermath of that. I really, really like Andrea. She's really smart, really great attorney, fantastic ability to distill information and put it into understandable terms. And she's going to come on and talk to me about the updates in the Brian Kohlberger case. That's the Idaho 4 murder suspect who is facing the death penalty. Idaho has announced that they're going to pursue the death penalty against Kohlberger, but there's just some problems with some of the evidence that they've presented. Andrea is on top of those problems. And I have seen them tangentially. People are like, I hope Bricada like covers this. I'm like, well, rather than me bumbling through it, what I'm going to do is bring someone on who I really like to talk to, who knows way more about the subject than I do, is an actual expert in this stuff, and can, communicate with me, educate me about it, educate you guys about it. Cause I know that when that Kohlberger trial drops, people are going to want to watch the Kohlberger trial. Like, that is going to be a thing. It's going to be one of the bigger trials to happen in a long time. It's going to be watched by everybody. And I am anticipating that I'm going to need to clear my schedule and be boned up on the trial and be ready to cover it as it happens. So, liking the idea of getting the information from someone I can trust. Also, it's been way too long she's been on the show, and she's cool. Cool, smart, funny, able to deliver information very well. Just got all of the things that make it great. So we're going to hopefully do that. And I talked to her. Thursday's looking like the great day to do it. Friday, we're going to have another chill comedy show. Probably, let me warn everybody, probably with Camelot, hopefully with some other people that I'll bring in, but with the caveat that we are steering the shows more like I am steering the shows more directly away from repeated degenerate comedy that got old. I understand it got to be every single Friday tended to feel the same, but people liked kind of the flow of having multiple personalities on, having a very chill sort of thing. And so did I. But again, so back to that format, assuming I can get some guests on it, but also with the same intentionality that I've been carrying on the previous 2 Friday shows and all of the other shows going into it, trying to keep the content light, but also fresh and fun and engaging, while talking about things that are going on, not just ridiculous sex comedy. Because as much as I like ridiculous sex comedy, it can be like, you don't want to watch the same show every week. So with that, that'll be the Friday show. Drex will be on sometime next week. I think he's going to come hang out for a significant portion of next week. So he'll probably be on for a lot of shows next week. I don't know exactly how many, but for those who've been wondering when Drex is going to come on the show next, we tend to spend 4th of July together, and looks like he is going to come out sometime, hang out with us His kid will hang out with our kids, and we'll get to have Drex on sometime next week because, Drex is my dude. We've been hanging out forever, and I love whenever we get the opportunity to do that. So that'll be cool. What's up to Good Logic and his chat? Thank you for rating the show. Love you guys. Love you guys. And just so everybody knows, if you ask me to not have someone on, the likelihood of me having them on increases marginally with each request. Because at the end of the day, I am still an obstinate asshole. And like that will never change. I don't ever schedule or unschedule guests based on what people in the chat say or people in the comments or whatever. So like if you don't want someone back on, the best thing to do is to not voice your opinion at all. But if you say like, don't bring so-and-so on, I'm likely going to do that. Real quick, I do want to address one more time the Pippa situation and Camelot, because this needs to be said. And a lot of people wouldn't want to do this and take this position. I mean, I think I talked about it on Locals, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now in front of everybody with the full knowledge that this will likely bring some backlash. But here we go. Here we go. So the other day, Camelot posted a picture on Twitter. Oh, and for the people saying, don't bring Pippa on or whatever, like I get the joke. I would have Pippa on any day. Pippa is always and has always been welcome on the show. And my understanding from discussions with Pippa is that she has always been willing to come on the show. But FaZe Connect is the management company that owns the Pippa character and all of the rights to it, and holds a contract with the person who is Pippa. And so FaZe Connect was the one who shut down her initial appearance on the show. Pippa has always been welcome here, would always be welcome here. There's nothing Pippa could do or say to be unwelcome on this show. And I even discussed with FaZe Connect directly my willingness to do something I don't normally do. I said, I will avoid any subject, any controversy or whatever. We won't talk politics. We don't have to talk crime. We don't have to talk anything where Pippa needs to take any sort of public stance on a controversial issue. I just want to talk to someone who is building a really interesting community as a VTuber that looks different than other communities and does it in a little bit of a different way. That's what I want to do. And FaZe Connect said, no, too controversial. So Pipkin Pippa will always be welcome on this show, but Pippa's management, FaZe Connect, very specifically, FaZe Connect is the one who has prevented Pippa from being on the show. If you want to see Pippa on this show, you need to talk to FaZe Connect about it, not me. Like I said, I'm willing to make any sort of concessions about it that they want, because I don't want to talk to Pippa about like politics and weird stuff. I want to talk to a VTuber who is kind of funny. Like that's what I would like to do. So that being said, it is FaZe Connect who has prevented this thing from happening forever. But anyway, so who Pippin is, and we'll lead off with this again in public, and we'll put my opinion directly out there. Pipkin Pippa is a VTuber. A VTuber is a virtual tuber, okay? So there's someone who does not appear on camera. Instead, they have an animated avatar. They have an animated avatar, typically in the style of a Japanese anime character that uses motion capture and face capture software to track the actor who is playing the character and mimic the movements with the animated model. And the technology has become more and more available to people to do this, where it's feasible to do it from your home and to do it very, very well as an independent person. All right. So Pipkin Pippa is one of these VTubers and has an explosively grown community. And look, let's just get it out there. VTubers, and more importantly, the VTuber fans, are weird as shit. Very fucking strange. Very weird subgenre of YouTube content creation. But I must say, one of the most popular. And if you go to, there's a website called Playboard, which tracks super chat income of live streamers. What you'll find is that the VTubers dominate the super chat charts. I think last I checked, something like the top 18 of the top 20 global super chat earners were VTubers, which means they blew away people like Tim Pool. They blew away people like me, who for a long time I was number 6 in the US and like number 25 in the world. With the shift away from YouTube and towards Rumble, that obviously has fallen off pretty dramatically. But believe it or not, I was one of the top 25, 26, something like that, super chat earners on the entire planet. But the VTubers at the top triple people like me, Tim Pool, Dr. Disrespect, I Show Speed. Like it's an insanely fervent fan community that they have built. All right. So to be very clear, like, it is a highly dedicated, highly engaged audience. And with that high dedication and high engagement, you have the potential for what we call murderous, insane simpery. And this develops from something that is common online and rapidly expanded under the VTuber and anime umbrella. All right. And this is where someone develops something called a parasocial relationship. That's where a relationship exists between someone who knows a lot about one person, usually due to the other person they know about being a personality or some sort of semi-famous figure, someone that they have access to. But the person who is the object of their relationship doesn't necessarily know the other person back or doesn't know them very well, because their interactions are necessarily limited or truncated by the separation of a screen or something else. People develop parasocial relationships with actors, with documentarians, talk show hosts, anybody who the public would have broad access to, but they don't have a similar avenue of access back to the public just due to the volume of sizes, right? There are various people, and there's nothing wrong with a parasocial relationship. I need to make that very clear. As a matter of course, like, people develop parasocial relationships because they like someone, they like their takes, their presentation, and they get to know a little bit about them and they like things about them. And so they go, I like this person. It's what brings people back to watching the same personalities over and over. So, like, there are plenty of parasocial relationships that I have throughout my lifetime. Rush Limbaugh, right? You kind of feel like you get to know Rush a little bit, or Glenn Beck when I used to listen to Glenn Beck. Various actors, like I used to watch every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie because I was a child and he was awesome. So like those types of things were the development of some parasocial relationship. You get to know things about the person, you think you get to know them, but you really don't. You really don't get to know them specifically. Now, with VTubers and with anime, there's a risk that those parasocial relationships are also harboring repressed psychotic sexual urges. Okay? It also happens with female streamers who wear skimpy clothes and stuff like that. But like the level of psychosis involved in the VTuber community specifically, and no, if you watch a VTuber, you are not automatically a psychopathic sexual simp, but there's a higher percentage chance in the VTuber community than anywhere else that I've seen that you are. So anyway, what happened is Camelot had Pippa on a stream not too long ago. It's great. Great stream. Fantastic. They made fun of me, which is perfect. And anytime I get mentioned, everything's important. So that's cool. So they did that. And then just a couple days ago, Camelot posted what we in the business called a joke. A joke where he took a picture of a woman and he put an emoji over her face. And he said, this woman, definitely not Pippa, is at my house taking pictures of my cat. All right. Now I can tell you with certainty, this woman is not Pippa. I have met the woman in the picture. It's not Pippa. That was a joke. It's a joke that people don't get. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with that is that two things happen. One, an alleged doxing of Pippa, or like a reveal of Pippa's actual appearance was done, even though it wasn't. It wasn't that. But that's an illusion shattering event. It shatters the suspension of disbelief that people have that allow them to engage in Vtubers. That's one thing. The other thing that happened, which is way funnier, is it then implied that Pippa had a boyfriend that was Camelot, and all of these nerds went into a murderous rage because their digital girlfriend was taken. So hilarious. I love it. It's fucking funny. But here's the thing. Poor Camelot did not realize how horrifying the VTuber community is. And here we've got the picture. Actually, this is the picture he posted. I think he has since taken down the tweet, but just to reiterate, this is not Pippa. This is not Pippa. Super cool chick. She's super nice. Not Pippa at all. But it was funny. It was funny. And now he's gotten like a bunch of death threats and all sorts of shit. The lesson for everybody who might be new to the internet is don't mess with my online girlfriend. Don't you dare. Don't you mess with my online girlfriend. You can't do that shit. You cannot do that shit. So I don't want to sit here and belabor this issue too much, but if you're not aware of this subgenre of YouTube, like you have to have it explained. Otherwise it sounds like fucking foreign language. So, the post is still live. Great. Perfect. Fantastic. So it's great. I love Camelot. He literally stuck his dick in a hornet's nest, and it's awesome to do that. But yeah, the VTuber community, don't mess with them. Don't mess with them. They're very protective of their pixels. Very, very protective. So, but since people have been talking about it, and you might see like posts about it or whatever, I wanted to address it real quick. Okay. With that, we've got a couple super chats, and then we're going to get into the main shit of the show, main topic. So, the Dragon's Treasure says the T-Man is out for vengeance and blood to help fund this quest for abstract revenge. Go to the Dragon's Treasure and use code NOSE for 10% off. The more you buy, the more blood will be spilt for the blood god. Very cool. Very cool. That's good. Chininator says, stop being on time. It's weird. Ryan Acorn says, don't ever have me on your show. I won't be seen around that nose. Duly noted. Duly noted. Matthew Self says, you're really great at inviting a panel of guests that have a great dynamic when you're trying to make great content. I understand the disconnect and you trying to rein in the show. Get that panel butt. Cheers, bud. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. Like, I love the panel shows. I love the Friday dynamic. It's just I had to get more control of the show than I was exhibiting. That was all on me. It's not on any panelists or anything like that. This is my show, and I run it the way I wanted to, and I didn't like the way I was running it. So we're changing it. Matthew Self also said, did you catch his coded message in his apology message? Phased his gay Lamouth. That had to be an accident. No way Camelot was smart enough to do that. So that was definitely a mistake. Phase Connect. Pretty gay. I know they're never going to let Pippa on the show, so it's not like I should beat around the bush. I think their management of Pippa has been pretty bad. Pretty bad, because they have the ability to bring people into that community who wouldn't otherwise be there. And there's lots of crossover between the views of people like Pippa and the views of other YouTubers that could be very beneficial. But, don't do it, I guess. Don't do it. But no, Pippa's very cool. So, okay. That being said, we're all done with that topic. And I do want to start with this NBC thing, which isn't in the whatchamacallit, the initial things. But This is important because it's Pride Month, and this is the shit that we're having to deal with. All right, so NBC News tweets, the Coming for Your Children chant has been used for years at Pride events, according to longtime march attendees and gay rights activists, who said it's one of many provocative expressions used to regain control of slurs against LGBTQ people. Notice this has 3.1 million views and less than 1,500 likes. They're getting annihilated on this topic. Absolutely annihilated on it. Let's take a peek at the news story. Fuck off. So organizers say the New York City Drag March is meant to be lighthearted and to poke fun at anti-LGBTQ sentiment. Here's the problem with trying to use "We're Coming for Your Children" as poking fun at anti-LGBTQ sentiment. There's a bunch of people under the LGBTQ banner as activists who are admittedly and openly coming for the children. And it's repeatedly shown again and again and again. And they're coming directly into classrooms, schools, and other children's programs. This has parents very, very concerned because parents want to be the ones to direct their children's learning about sexual issues when the children are young. And mostly parents actually just don't want children to encounter these sex-related issues when they're young because they don't believe that it's appropriate for their children to be delving into these subjects. So instead, school teachers and activists who believe they know better than parents think that they should take the reins on these very, very charged issues and force them down the children's throat and plant them into children's minds. Parents don't want that. And parents should have the ability to direct the learning of their children, absent some activist sort of opinion or perspective on it. But they don't want that to happen. So now they're going to justify the "We're Coming for Your Children" saying, well, it's been going on for years. We know it's been going on for years, fuckers. You've been coming after our children for years. And I think maybe I'm wrong on this. But my general opinion is that most LGBTQ people don't give a shit about your kids. I would think the overwhelming majority of them are just like, yeah, I kind of just want to live my life and touch whatever genitalia I prefer to touch and just have a job and stuff like a normal person, right? Like they just want to do the thing that they do. But activism inflates the appearance that people want something more out of that. Now, it'd be impossible, I think, to get statistics on this, but I think there is a silent majority of LGBTQ people who just want to remain silent. Like they're just like, I don't care. I get up and go to work like everybody else. I'm tired and I don't really fucking want to do all this. But the loud activism always makes a particular group seem more intent on something than they may be. Now, I could be wrong on that. It's just my general feeling of deference towards how group dynamics tend to work. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like I'm not professing to have the data. I'm not professing to have the data. So that's just my opinion. Frederick Little, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Really, really appreciate that, brother. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Next. So we got over the weekend a short video circulated widely on social media of an unidentified person at New York City March during Pride festivities saying, "We're coming for your children." And again, this would be innocuous if it weren't so plainly obvious that many people are coming for the children of mainstream America. Like they are doing that. There's a push for it every day. There's news stories about it every day. School boards are clashing with teachers and with parents on each side of this issue all the time. So this is a real concern for parents. In the 21-second clip circulated by a right-wing web streamer channel, dozens of people march in the streets and are clearly heard chanting, "We're here, we're queer, we're not going shopping." But one voice that is loud in the crowd is, it's not clear whose or whether the speaker was a member of the LGBTQ community. Started saying at least twice, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." To conservative pundits, activists, and lawmakers, the video confirmed the allegations they've levied in recent years that the LGBTQ community is grooming children. And let's be honest, the LGBTQ community itself is not grooming children. The activists within that community who are the most outspoken and who have placed themselves in schools, in HR departments, in public libraries, in advocacy organizations, absolutely are coming for your children. They are. There's no way around it. There's no bones about it. It doesn't mean that they're on some quest to molest them. Some of them are, but statistically, in every organization, some people are out to molest children. So we'll just ignore that for a little bit and simply say that there's a contingent of people from this community in these places with access to children who desperately want to talk to children about sex. And that is fucking weird. That's just weird. I don't know how else to say it, but that's weird. It's weird if it's LGBTQ. It's weird if it's heteronormative. It's weird in any case where people have a desperate obsession to talk to kids about sex and sexuality, other people's kids specifically. Very fucking weird. So back to this, but to Brian Griffin, the original organizer of the NYC Drag March, if that's the worst they heard, it's only because he wasn't there this year. Griffin said he chanted obscene things in the past like, kill, 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 we're coming to kill the mayor. First of all, an anti-government rant against a public official is not more obscene than we're coming for your children. Like, we must differentiate that hyperbolic political speech is actually strongly protected. It's one of the most protected types of speech. Now, a true threat is different, but this isn't a true threat. Like, that is not a true threat. It's not advisable to say in a public rally, but it's not a true threat. And it's similarly nowhere near as obscene as talking about coming for someone's children. Let's see. And joked about the pubic hair and sex toys during marches. People at the drag march regularly saying God is a lesbian. Again, these are not even offensive. These are dismissible sort of statements. These are dismissible statements for most people. They just say, okay, whatever, you're weird. Fine. It's all just words, Griffin said. It's all presented to fulfill their worst stereotypes of us. The Coming for Your Children chant has been used for years at Pride events, according to longtime march attendees and gay rights activists. This doesn't make it better. Who said it's one of many provocative expressions used to regain control of slurs against LGBTQ people. And in this case, they said right-wing activists are jumping on a single video to weaponize an out-of-context remark to further stigmatize the queer community. Let's put this to bed, and we're not going to keep reading the article because I can make the point that I want to make directly from this last bit. They're not using a single video to weaponize against the LGBTQ community. Most right-wing content creators don't speak out against generally the community because we know the potential backlash for that. If you speak out against LGBTQ community as a whole, you're on the short list for extermination from the internet by the powers that be. Second of all, this is not the only video. It's just the most recent piece of evidence that people have that members of the LGBT community specifically are inserting themselves into position where they have access to children or school curriculum or school library choices or whatever to push a very specific agenda that they have in regards to teaching children about sexuality in the way that conforms with their lifestyle and life choices. And often doing so in some of the grosser ways, which is part of the problem. Hello says, you literally called me the F word last week. Yeah. And I'll call it to you again later. It's fine. Stop being a weirdo. But it has nothing to do with this like one-off video. It's just the latest thing in a trend that's been going on for years and was really caught fire and exposed during COVID because finally kids were coming home to do their learning and the parents got exposed to the pedagogical motives of certain members within the LGBTQ community who are trying to foist this stuff on kids as young as kindergarten and first grade. They don't find that appropriate. This is the problem. This is why taking the approach of saying we're coming for your kids is actually a reinforcing mechanism for quote unquote right wingers. It's because you've demonstrated that it's true, or people have done it on your behalf. And now you're out saying the quiet part out loud. And we're just fucking tired of it. And for the record, we don't want a hetero person coming out and teaching our first graders about heterosexual activity either. Like, I don't want a slide in my kid's first grade class about flicking the bean of your heterosexual partner. Like, that's not it, right? Or like Moses spreading the labia in Sunday school. I don't want that. I don't want Moses to take the staff, go like this, and see the Red Sea split, which I guess would be a woman on her period. I don't want that in my kid's Sunday school class. No one wants that, no matter how hetero it is. It's weird. It's just fucking weird. That's the problem. You're weird. You're being weird, guys. Just stop being weird. Just be normal. AC's Drafting says, hi, 40th birthday today and super depressed. Dad died years ago, but I'm happy to see you on. Thank you, sir. Oh, shit. Why are you depressed? I mean, don't get me wrong. We all go through it from time to time. Do a little toast for you. Little toast for you. Not a lot. Again, rolling back the level of drinking I do on a shout to what it used to be. Because got to be a lot. Anyway, AC's Drafting. Dude, happy 40th. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know about the depression. I do know and can tell that you miss your dad. And of course you do. They're who we lean on for men, when we're at our wits' end, our last leg. Hey, Dad, have you dealt with this? He goes, no, but got you. Right. And that's one of the most reassuring things in the world is when your dad says, nah, I never dealt with that. That's something you're going to have to figure out, but I got you. I got you. So AC's Drafting. I know your dad's not here to say it, brother, but I can speak for myself and probably tons of men in the chat. Whatever you're going through, brother, we got you. We got you. Soldier on. Be a man. Understand that your life involves sacrificing some of your gratification for everybody else in the world. And it's super thankless sometimes. But what you do should matter to you, even if it doesn't matter to anybody else. Cheers, brother. Chin up. All right. Very, very, that's all I'm going to talk about on the gay thing. It's not high on my list of stuff to talk about, but it was there. It was there. Now, let me find this fucking Twitter thread, which is full of idiocy. Hold on. I thought I shared it with myself, but apparently didn't. So, fuck are we? Where am I? Here we go. Let me get to this thread. Here it is. Oh, the account got suspended. No! No, my whole show segment is destroyed. Damn it. I hate everything. I didn't see this guy posting anything suspendable. Damn it. Why the fuck would this be suspended? Let me see if Internet Archive has it. Fucking hell. No. Fucking hell. All right. I'll have to reconstruct the argument. I don't know what the hell got them suspended. I would assume it was from a different conversation because that conversation didn't have anything suspendable. And I didn't think we were suspending people. No, Zeno, don't worry. Nothing's going to get me suspended from it. It's on Twitter. God damn it. Okay, well, we'll talk. I mean, I can talk about this issue all day. I don't need their take on it. I just wanted to walk through their specific take on it because rather than me making this argument and then, straw manning it or steel manning it, I would just use their words. Okay, but I will do my best to reconstruct it. Fucking hell. Jack Sparrow says Rumble needs a download button. I live in Wyoming. We don't have people or cell service. I download YouTube, but then you switch platforms and leave me with blue balls. It's just a tease, but I don't get to finish. I'll talk to them about it. I hope they do. The creators have the ability to download their own shows, which is cool. So they should be able to do that in some way, but I don't know. All right. Okay. Here is the issue. So the other day, Jamie Raskin, I was talking about Jamie Raskin and pistol braces and stuff like that. And we talked about how pistol braces are not firearms. They're not even arms. They're an accessory that you would add to an arm. And Jamie Raskin's argument was just read the Second Amendment and you'll see why the founders would apparently support the banning of pistol braces, which I shredded in my own sort of style. All right. This person came out with the oft repeated argument that, well, when the founders drafted the Second Amendment, which remember was ratified in 1791, when they drafted the Second Amendment, they could not have possibly anticipated machine guns, high explosives, and other weapons of war. And therefore, we need to, in a modern context, take a modern approach to the freedom and the right to bear arms that considers the reasonability of the ownership of the arms, right? Because, and I quote this person, no one thinks it's reasonable for a private citizen to own a rocket launcher. Bruh. I think it's reasonable for a private citizen to own a rocket launcher. Finally out of the closet on that one, I guess. Of course it's reasonable. It's reasonable for someone to own a cannon. It's reasonable for someone to own a machine gun. It's reasonable for someone to own a bomber plane if they want one, a warship, an aircraft carrier, a nuclear submarine. The weapons of war were always and must always, under the current Second Amendment, be accessible, ownable, and bearable by the people. Now, why is the question? Why does anybody need this? They don't. No one needs anything. And more importantly, why is not considered in the Second Amendment? Why isn't a fucking question? To quote Monty Python, why doesn't enter into it? So let's pull up the Second Amendment, which I could just tell you. Well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. But let's just go ahead and pull it up so we have it and make sure I said it correctly. Quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Very simple statement. And it means that the right, not granted by this Constitution, not recognized by this government, the right that is inherent to the people by manner of their very basic existence, to keep and bear arms, not for a particular purpose, not for defense of self, not for defense from tyranny, not for hunting, not for sport, not for ornamentation, but just the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It shall not be infringed. There is nothing that can or should infringe on the right of the people to keep and bear arms. But Nick, you say, that seems unreasonable. Technology has advanced far beyond the founders could have ever imagined. We have fully automatic weapons. We have explosive shells. We have shotgun shells that light people on fire. Hilarious. We have bolo rounds in shotguns that have a string attached that cause catastrophic damage to anything they hit. Also hilarious. We have howitzers that launch explosive shells potentially miles away. Also hilarious. We have nuclear weapons that can wreak untold devastation. We have explosives. And I ask again, where is the ambiguity in the statement, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? There isn't ambiguity. And I know the temptation for some people who try to be like, look, this, I'm not going to blanket say it's liberals. These are people on the liberal side of the gun issue who try to acknowledge the existence of the Second Amendment and balance it with their uneasiness about what it actually means. And a lot of times that balanced question is in good nature and good spirit. So don't get too wrapped up in how people address these things, because a lot of times they are at this point speaking in good faith. All right. They just go, look, I don't think these guys were using muskets and musket pistols and swords. We're anticipating a minigun that can fire 1,000 rounds a minute. Like, that just doesn't seem right to me. And you may actually be correct to some extent on that. But you have to have this little history lesson. At the time of the adoption of the Second Amendment, the ratification of the Second Amendment, the ratification of the Constitution, the founders had recently fought the Revolutionary War. And in the Revolutionary War, the main weapons of war, cannons, and particularly warships, which were weapons of mass destruction at the time, were privately owned by individuals or by corporations and companies. And many of them were borrowed by the Revolutionary Army for the purpose of fighting the war. And that trend would actually continue far into the future. The private ownership of arms and a lending to the country in times of need was a common practice, not just in the US. Not just in the US. People owned guns for various purposes. Sometimes it's because they were members of the militia. Other times, they're part of the volunteer police department. Remembering that police departments in 1791, especially in smaller rural communities, were usually a posse of concerned citizens, kind of like a volunteer fire department with even less organizational structure than we have today, because we didn't have organized policing in the same way. And at the founding of the country, we didn't have a standing army. They're very concerned about a standing army. So some people had arms for the purposes that they were in the militia. They could be called to defend their homestead or their neighbor's homestead at any point from an actual attack by either the natives, Native Americans. You may have the Spanish. You may have the English. Or you just may have a murderous pack of people or rapacious pack of people that you need to defend homestead and family from. So you would have guns for that. You'd also have guns for hunting. You would have guns in some cases for the wealthier citizens. They would have dueling pistols for the times when they were disrespected and might need to use them to address the disrespect. You had these for lots of purposes, and they were carried frequently. But it's important to note that none of these purposes are part of the right to keep and bear arms. It was just so ubiquitously recognized that everyone had a right to keep and bear arms that the reason for having them didn't matter, and the appearance of them in public on a person wasn't questioned. Because why would you question something that was normal? So with that said, though, it is certainly possible that though the founders acknowledged the private ownership of the weapons of war, all the way up to weapons of mass destruction like a warship that could rain terror on a city with relative ease, those were privately owned. But here's what the founders did that was brilliant. In the Constitution specifically, which I think is in Article 5, let me check. Yes, here we go. They wrote Article 5, and this is important. Let's look at Article 5. Article 5 says the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent should be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. Okay. So we have this system for amending the Constitution. And it is effectively when the will of the representatives is manifesting, I should say, the collective will of the people to make a dramatic change, they can do it. But the political will of the country has to be aligned at both the national level and the state level. And it can be done by the national representatives and the state houses, or it can be done by the states themselves and then the people of the states by ballot measure. The founders built a way to adjust to changing concepts, changing technologies, emerging understandings of these things. And to be fair, many of the founders thought that our Constitution would not resemble itself 30 to 50 years from the time it was passed. But our Constitution remains fairly largely unchanged. And some fundamental aspects of it have disappeared. Some fundamental things have been added to it. The rights to vote going beyond merely white landowning males, into women, into Africans, into anyone else who is a citizen of the United States. Big change, right? The income tax, a big change. The prohibition of liquor was a big change, and the reinstatement of liquor was a big change. We have these things where at some point in time, the political will was great enough to remove from democracy these issues. It has never happened with the Second Amendment or the First Amendment or any of the Bill of Rights. But we did have one problem that confuses this entire issue. One problem that confuses this entire issue is Marbury versus Madison, which gave the Supreme Court the ability to deem something constitutional or unconstitutional and to define the scope of the law, which is not actually in Article 3. But the judicial branch took that power in Marbury versus Madison, and no one has ever challenged it effectively. But that said, it allowed Congress to abdicate its responsibility to adapt to changing concepts. That doesn't mean that responsibility doesn't exist. And the problem is that reasonable infringements are infringements. And though they may be upheld by a Supreme Court, as they have been in US v. Miller in regards to the National Firearms Act, that does not change the fact that they are infringements, and on their face are not permissible under this Constitution. And this is a largely conceptual argument, because the conceptual application of constitutionality in law always runs up against its practical measure. And the practical measure is we have these infringements that do exist. The question is not whether we have them. The question is a philosophical question of should they exist? Are they valid? And I will always contend no. The infringement of a lawful citizen's right to own any arm is intolerable under the Constitution. Any. Yes, that includes nuclear weapons. It includes everything. I know that makes people very, very uncomfortable. And that's an okay thing, that you're uncomfortable with the idea of someone owning a nuclear weapon. However, we have a process by which political will can manifest. And I'm pretty sure if we had a proposed amendment to say that nuclear weapons for private ownership are not acceptable, we would pass that pretty easily. But our Congress doesn't want to do that. And this is the critical sort of thing. It sounds reasonable to say, well, we have to adapt to the changing times, new technologies that weren't anticipated by the founders, but we don't, because we don't on any other amendment. If we had a new housing structure that came up from the time of the founding to now, we would still say you can't ban or you can't quarter soldiers in the houses of private citizens. No matter what the houses look like, no matter the technology, no matter how big the houses get, you can't do it. And no matter how good the technology gets, you're not supposed to be able to search someone's person, places, places of business, effects, possessions, and papers without probable cause and a warrant or an exception to the warrant requirement. The Fourth Amendment at least includes a reasonability standard. The Second and the First do not. They do not. So conceptually, under the Second Amendment as written, what arms should be not permitted to individuals? None of them. All arms should be permissible if you can acquire them. All of them. Every single one. And if we don't like it, we have a process by which we're supposed to amend this thing and change it. It should be changed with relative frequency as political will manifests. But we have a Congress that is too cowardly to act. And we have a judicial branch that took just enough power to make them not want to. This is the critical difference in nature and understanding of the Constitution that we have with people who care about what it says and what the restrictions are, and people who don't. This is not legal advice for what you can do right now. Obviously, there are laws that are enforced about what you can own and bear and all of that stuff. You have to take those into consideration for your personal safety and security. But if we're talking about constitutional concepts, there is no restriction which is permissible or tolerable under the Second Amendment. And that's just a fact of the text. And again, to quote one of my favorite things that Scalia ever said, is they wrote this stuff down because they didn't believe that it belonged in the regular democratic process. Wanted to take it out of the voting for representatives, the voting for senators, the executive branch approval. Say only when the political will was manifest sufficient to change the Constitution will we address anything like this. Because these are rights. These are not trends. These are not fads. These are not concepts or ideas that are present day versus the future versus the past. These are built into our DNA. So there you go. That's the best retort I can give against the now non-existent Twitter posts. My bad. I guess I should have screenshotted all of them, but I didn't think some random guy who had a liberal take on the Second Amendment. I didn't see any of his other stuff, so I don't know if he was like liberal in general, but a random guy with a random liberal take on the Second Amendment would get banned from Twitter. That was unexpected. You're fucking drunk? Me too? No. I've had half of a shot. I wish I was drunk, but I won't be getting drunk tonight. Coleman Sweeney with a huge Rumble rant. Thank you, Coleman. Says, you saying every American should be able to own a rocket launcher brought me to completion. Thank you. Of course they should. Dude, I saw this sweet fucking video. Super illegal to do, but it was awesome. Some guy got mad at his neighbors for having loud music, so he attached a Roman candle to his drone. He flew the drone up and it was firing Roman candle shots down on their loud party. It was so awesome. It was so fucking great. I was like, yo, my gosh, he created an unarmed weapon or unmanned weapon. That was cool. So then what is your opinion? Do you believe that individuals should own nukes? I think so. I think as long as our Constitution is written the way it is, yeah. Like, should individuals own nukes? I don't know. There's probably a bunch of people who shouldn't. I probably shouldn't own one. I think it'd be funny if I did, but I mean, I might accidentally set it off. But until we manifest the easy political will to say, you know what, chemical and nuclear weapons are not included in the Second Amendment. That would be a pretty simple amendment. And I think everybody's on board with that, just about, in the country. Like to say, yeah, probably don't want those. But, you know, until we do, yes. Oversoul says, hey, brother, your hard-nosed, get busy life advice inspired me to get a critical certification and search for a role befitting my skills. And I did starting Wednesday. Cheers. Basil Hayden's running low. Cheers, brother. That is awesome. I love that you improved yourself and went out and got something better. I hope it is nothing but profitable and beneficial for you. Go for Big Guy 911 says, so what you're saying is that VTubers have their own Montagraph. I'm saying VTubers kind of are there. No, yes. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Aren't chemical weapons banned? Yeah. But should they be? Like under the Second Amendment, should they be? Doesn't that create the slippery slope that the government can then begin its descent on gun grabbing, though? Look, I don't want an amendment repealing the Second Amendment. And I think that would be unpopular. But an amendment that recognizes and says, you know what? Technology has changed and weapons have gotten bigger than they were in 1791. And we're uncomfortable with some people having access to like nuclear weapons or, you know, like an ICBM launching submarine or something. So we're just going to go ahead and limit like the ability for private citizens or private companies to own nuclear technology or chemical weapons or biological agents. Okay. Like I think that amendment in some iteration would pass. People wouldn't be too bad about it. And I don't think that a concisely written amendment on these extremely volatile weapons would translate to gun grabbing personally. But if you just repeal the Second Amendment, obviously it would. That'd be the problem. So you need that balance, but you can make that balance and tons of reasonable people will be like, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm okay with Elon Musk not being able to hold America hostage with nukes from his yacht or something. Like I think people would be okay with that. Boomerang. Personally, I'm neutral on it. Like I'm just giving you the perspective of what was written down versus what's going on. But like if they wanted to amend the Second Amendment to make it more specific, I'd have to issue an opinion based on how they amended it, right? How the proposed amendment will work. Boomerang 53 says, Nick, as a new Rumble creator, I have a question for you. To ask your contacts at Rumble. When are they going to support 360 videos like YouTube does? And you've just broken my cherry on paid chats. Oh, perfect. I love to pop chat cherries. I can ask them. I have no idea. 2 for flinching says conceptually is the responsibility of the government to make changes on itself and not the citizens. Well, the interesting thing about Article 5 is you can manifest the will to change the Constitution in two ways, through the representative government or through the people of the states. Either way works. Either way functions. It's just really hard, and they knew it would be hard to manifest the political will to do something like a constitutional amendment. They wanted it to be difficult. They did not want the Constitution changing dramatically all the time. Only when there was total public or representative support for a topic that was, congruent with both parties' outlooks. We recognize this thing to be a danger to the country, to society, to our people, whatever. We need to amend this thing. And if you look at the amendments, largely the amendments have been things that do have massive political will. Now, some of them were hoodwinks, right? The income tax amendment. The income tax was proposed as a very small tax on the top 1% of income earners to help fight World War I. And then, of course, the income tax got disseminated down to everybody because government sucks. But that being said, the political will was there for World War I, the potential for World War II, the idea of collecting funds from extremely wealthy people who had benefited from America's capitalistic system to fund this stuff was the idea. And a lot of people manifested that will because they didn't think it would ever hit them. Didn't take long, by the way, for that to happen. Dawnbreaker says, and that whole thing they argue about there were no rapid fire guns back then is BS. The Belton repeater was a musket that reportedly fired 30 to 60 rounds a minute with a range of 30 yards. Yeah. I mean, there were emerging technologies going on at the time of the ratification of the Constitution, the Second Amendment, that certainly indicated that much more was coming. And I think the idea that you go, oh yeah, the founding fathers believed that they'll only have single fire muskets for the rest of history is silly, because I'm sure you guys just sitting at home, not even really thinking about it, could come up with potential future weapons or advancements to existing weapons that would dramatically change how they work. And of course, we've seen sci-fi shows and reports about things like rail guns and plasma guns and stuff like that tell us that, yeah, there's a whole plethora of opportunities. It's dumb to assume that just because we're today, that the founders couldn't have anticipated or projected that weapons would change dramatically in the future. Like, of course they did. Of course they predicted that. It's the concept behind it that they chose to uphold, which is no. Doesn't matter if they change. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter the emerging technology, because the right is in the people, period. Until the people come together and abridge that right, the manifest will of a constitutional amendment, we can't take it away from them. But people manifest the will to abridge their own rights all the time. So, like, it's not unfeasible that they would change the Second Amendment. It's just that they haven't needed to, because the Supreme Court took that power in Marbury versus Madison. I have to reiterate how bad and how impactful of a decision Marbury versus Madison actually was to this country, because it took away the constitutional process for modifying the constitutional text, and it gave it to the court rather than where it belonged. So that is my tirade on the Second Amendment, a little bit of history, a little bit of constitutional education from my perspective. Of course, go listen to other perspectives on this topic so you know how wrong they are. This is the only correct opinion to have on it. And I'm going to humbly say that that is actually true. Normally I'd be joking on that, but this is according to the reading of the text, according to the jurisprudence from Heller, according to all indications that we have from the founders, this is the read that is proper, and all of the other reads are ridiculous. So, TMF Squid says there were prototypes for multi-shot guns in their 1700s and 1790s. Founders could have absolutely been able to imagine that automatic weapons would one day exist. Liberal arguments about what the founders could imagine from those come from those who don't know history. And of course, if you just go ahead and go to the First Amendment and say, well, the founders couldn't have predicted these other religions. The founders couldn't have predicted the internet. Founders couldn't have predicted phones and direct messaging. So in all of those things, we need to have reasonable restrictions on speech. I mean, who should be able to talk freely over a phone? And that's the same type of argument. And it's crazy. It's nonsense. Why would the press that has access to everybody through something called the internet, why would that need to be protected? Well, the same reason the press had to be protected originally. Like, the government just has no place in controlling the thoughts and speech of the citizenry through any means. Through any means. All right. Let's go ahead and hit some of these chats. We'll do the promo for Field of Greens, and then we'll move over to Rumble in just a minute. All right. Tyrant's Blood says, I hope you have a screenshots of that Second Amendment exchange. That account looks to be suspended. Shit. Wolfgang Deo says, reasonable restrictions on Second Amendment already exists, shall not be infringed. Government is the one who is to be restricted. Citizens shoot themselves. Janiel Vargas says, Rackets, do you remain in extraordinarily bad terms with both Farron and Legal Bites? Asking for a friend. Many thanks. I don't think I'm on bad terms with Legal Bites. We are just completely neutral. I don't talk to Legal Bites at all. I have nothing against Legal Bites. I don't think she has anything against me. As far as Farron, every time I talk to Farron, we're very cordial. I don't know of anything that's changed between that. But, I don't know. Found out lately that I've pissed off so many people by doing things that don't have any impact on them. And so I never know. But my understanding is that Farron and I are cool. And I wish nothing but the best for Farron. So I got nothing on that one. Where's Branca? Branca is not able to do these night shows because they're way too late for him. I am looking to have some opportunities to do some day shows, either trial watches coming up in July or just general day shows where I can have Branca on, because I love talking to him. He's very smart. He knows his field very well. He just had a case where he consulted on it that I would be happy to talk to him about. But it's just our periods don't sync up. So Rick Nikita says, I'm so glad Rumble lets me know that you're streaming. Won't give me the stream, but it's the effort that counts. Wait, so the notification on Rumble doesn't actually take you to the stream? That's fucking annoying. Slaglass says, Nick, don't you dare ever have Shu on head as a guest. What would I talk to Shu about? X says, please don't have anyone from FPC on. Firearms Policy Coalition, they would be welcome on at any time. Bob that God Made Mad says, Joe was showing his age tonight. He was talking about the Titanic being an inside job. Nirot, an Axaman Bear says, can you get V from Romania on the stream tonight? No. He's the obvious guest to get on right now for this topic. Also, he's both a trained lawyer and doctor. No, I've talked to V, not on stream. I've talked to V though, but I wasn't going to have him on tonight. No. Analog Mind says, as someone who believes the bans on automatic weapons and short barrel rifles are BS, same here. How do we regulate explosive devices in a constitutional manner? Well, explosive devices are difficult because are explosive devices commercial devices that are in the stream of commerce that Congress can regulate? Maybe. Are they weapons of war? Are they arms like a claymore, a grenade? If they are, I don't see how the Second Amendment can prevent you from, or can allow the prevention of your possession of them, right? But just the manufacturing of general explosives could probably be regulated in some way by Congress. So that one's a tough one, where you have the powers of Congress coming up against the Second Amendment. And I guess it would really depend on the purpose of the devices. Ehab says, sounds like NBC is just admitting they've been planning to target children for years. Samantha Edie says, huge fan. Your stream is so refreshing. I've been watching since Rittenhouse. I know you've been doing some meetup events. Any chance you're going to do any down south near the Carolinas? Well, I am going to be in Nashville, Tennessee on September 16th. for meetup event, and the tickets should be going on sale very, very soon. So if that's the closest I'll be to the Carolinas for a big meetup event, will be Nashville, September 16th. Once those tickets are on sale, I'm talking to my venue scout tomorrow. Hopefully we've got a response from the venue so I can book it. But once that's set in stone, tickets go on sale. So very, very soon, hopefully. Let's see. Pony Up says down with the gaytriarchy. EF says YouTuber Stephen Hamilton has an autistic kid. He talks about how this impacts autistic kids. Could be an interesting interview. Oh, with the trans stuff or the pride stuff. Yeah, that would be, yes, very interesting. The subject of autism, or even just particularly vulnerable people who aren't autistic, would be, that's an interesting angle on all of this. Let's see. Chris Clement says, only not weird if it restrained to talking about appropriate touch, and that no one should be molesting them, not their coach, not their parent, not their teacher, not their priest. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Drop Barracuda says, can't expect the predominantly childless to understand or respect why this is such an issue, threatening to go after people's kids. Drop Barracuda says, the Red Sea. USSJ4 Broly says, catching up on your previous shows. Been MIA for a bit. Simply wanting to say thanks for all the content and rants. Love the growth. Bless you, the entire Ricada fam. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Bad Dragonite says, fun update on Xbox FTC case. Sony fanboy JTech TV thought it was a great idea to broadcast a trial despite knowing it was explicitly forbidden. Ooh. William Dixon, welcome to Super Lawyer. Richard Hambrick, message retracted, but it was your first super chat. Thank you. Bad Dragonite says, when called out, JT's response was to call people Xbox snitches mad at success. Then the plan to avoid consequence was to put the trial behind a paywall. Tracer said the founders would want me to have a suitcase nuke. Probably. Jack Sparrow says, I spent decades in the military. Most people think the military are professionals. We were retarded kids led by a 22-year-old guy with a degree in geology. If we got rockets, all should have rockets. Nice. Eve Fell says, imagine if they took this line of reasoning to the Third Amendment. Well, what about Navy officers or law enforcement? How about government bureaucrats? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Joe Ball says, Nick, what's up, Joe? How you doing? Trad Beardsman says, the government borrows its rights from the people. They should not be able to possess anything more than individual citizens. I agree. I agree. X says, don't forget, gunpowder is a chemical weapon. The Field says, I want my McNukes nose. Grifty says, did you see the SCOTUS opinion on gerrymandering that came out this week and cited Marbury versus Madison? I haven't read the opinion, but yes, I'm familiar with the gerrymandering opinion. I'm familiar with Thomas's dissent of that. Pretty interesting stuff. Bandit 848 says, without judicial review, what check does the court have on the other branches? Tons. Like, again, going back, this would take hours to explain again and again and again. But if we unwound, it'd be hard to imagine unwinding judicial review now, but we would have a Supreme Court that looks completely different than 9 justices. And I think that was the kind of the intent, was to have a Supreme Court that would oversee all cases and controversies, not a limited list of those that were granted cert by 9 people. Let's see. Adam Warlock, non-American question. I know people try to separate or enjoin the part with the militia, but even if you go with it, isn't every able body that can be conscripted always part of the militia? The traditional definition of the militia was every male able-bodied between the ages of 15 and 45. So a good portion of them. But of course, the militia is literally whoever you can get when you're invaded. So Flagrant Trigger says, what would it take to listen to my relief arguments against the custody order that contained unjust sanctions against me due to misconduct/procedure? I have no idea what that would take. Rael, roast the first non-super chat you see. Shame them. Bill Leslie says, the leftards in NYC are clamping down on wood-fired pizza ovens. You know what? Bill, that's a dumb opinion. How dare you? What are you, fat? You need your wood-fired pizza all the time? Your delicious charcoal tasting bullshit with pepperonis and probably pineapple on it, you heathen. There you go. Hello says, total A-log victory. The Hella male claims another. Okay. Dawnbreaker says, no, you don't understand, Fed boy. All that C4 in my shed is for cooking. Exactly. And Magnificent Devil says both rockets and bombs are both positively endorsed in the national anthem. Correct. All right. With that, we need to do something very, very important here. I'm feeling a little dehydrated and a little malnourished, to be honest. And the best way to take care of both of those problems is by using fieldofgreens.com promo code knows. Look, Field of Greens obviously supports the ownership of dangerous chemical weapons because that's what you get in every nutritious scoop of Field of Greens is a dangerous set of chemicals for an unhealthy lifestyle, bringing you to the beauty of good health, good cheer by simply adding fruits and vegetables to your diet in a convenient way. Take your water, take your scoop, 10 grams of the powder goes in, and then you just go ahead and shake it on up, and then you drink it. It's really simple. And each scoop that goes in water is one serving of fruit, one serving of vegetables. Look, if you're like me and you don't like having to cook vegetables all the time because you just want to eat a steak or a hot dog or chicken or pork, chicken only if you're black or whatever, pork only if you're Jewish, you can add Field of Greens to your diet. You get some servings of fruit and vegetables in a really simple way that actually tastes pretty good. Pretty good. I was skeptical of the lemon lime at first. Wasn't my favorite. The more I drink it, the more I like it. Wild berry still is my favorite flavor. They also have the natural antioxidants that come in fruits and vegetables. And some of them, despite, depending on what's in them, have some natural caffeines and stuff as well. Cheers to Field of Greens. Thank you always for sponsoring the show. Guys, go check them out. Everyone who's checked them out and reported back to me actually really likes the product. Legal Mindset has similarly endorsed them and was using them long before any of us got sponsored by them or I had even heard of them. They're a cool company. They're nice. They believe in free speech. And look, they're just trying to get some nutrition into people who may not have as easy of a time. If you're busy, if you're eating fast food a lot, if you're on the run, or if you're like me and you just like meat, you can go ahead and add fruits and vegetables to your diet with just a simple drink that tastes good. With that, guys, we're going to go. Oh, wait. Adam Warlock says, great. I'm glad I was somewhat correct telling a friend mid-sentence that he is part of a well-organized militia. He got so confused. And Don Breaker says, what's with everyone having something big going on in July? You, Jeremy, and Crowder have stuff going on. Well, I mean, it's the summer. It's the summer, and that's when people do a lot of stuff. So I don't know. What do I have big that's going on in July? I mean, my big thing's in August that I have. I don't know of any big thing in July. I know I'm going to have like a Friday and maybe a Monday off at the beginning of July, but I'm not sure. So it doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. We're going to move over to Rumble. There's a 20-second little audio clip here to move from YouTube to Rumble. Look, the link to the Rumble show is at the top of the live chat on YouTube. It's pinned by Jessica Reloaded, the pinned comment. It's also in the description of the YouTube stream. Look, if you're on YouTube, before you leave, if you like this show, if you like what we're doing here, please click the like button on YouTube, either before you log off or before you switch to Rumble. It really helps. That engagement really helps. If you want to drop comments on the show, that really helps too. So I really appreciate when you guys do that. Any of that engagement is beneficial for me and helps YouTube let the algorithm know that, people do like this show. So please go ahead and do that on your way out. Also, on Rumble, go ahead and click that thumbs up as well. Really, really helpful there, of course, in a direct way, different from YouTube, but direct in a very direct way. So please do that. And we'll see you over there. Don Breaker says, are you going to start the revolution in July? Yes, of course. All right. We'll see you guys on Rumble. Peace.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,